Hi guys, welcome to The Real Story on ZMC Network. I've got Muhammad Ali on the show today. He's going to be our political analyst. Our topic for discussion today is a very, very crucial topic. It's that of the general election on the 12th of December 2019 and the build up to it. So we're going to be discussing that. We're going to bring views and opinions of obviously the different parties. We're going to discuss what their policies are to a degree. We're going to discuss the pros and cons. Muhammad Ali, welcome.
Thank you, absolutely. We've got less than 2 weeks now before the big day on the 12th of December. As you can see from the TV hustings that the battleground is getting more and more vicious, and it's going to get even more vicious as the big day approaches.
Our phone lines are actually open, so if anybody wants to call in and ask any questions, or they want clarity on anything or any sort of issue, if they're unsure of who to vote for, if they've got some issue in relation to what we're discussing, their opinions, their ideas, their viewpoints, they're more than welcome to call through. The number will be displayed at the bottom of the screen, so if you want to call in, you're more than welcome to. Now Ali, yes. 12th of December.
Big day.
Very big day. What's your position on that? Do you think, your personal opinion, do you think it's going to be an easy win for whichever party gets in, or do you think there's a lot of issues in respect of obviously, it being, possibly a coalition?
Absolutely. I don't think there is anything such as an easy win. There will have to be great policies, great manifestos, a lot of door knocking, a lot of effort put in by all parties in order for them to get their deserved seats. But if you look at and listen to the polls, then we might as well just pack our bags and go home, because they have put the Tories ahead by 60 seats. But as we know, that polls should only be taken with a pinch of salt. So everything is to play for. And I think really now there is a real sense, a real thirst by the electorate to digest and dissect of all the misinformation and the fake news that is going on. For those of you who are following politics, you know exactly what I mean by some of the games that are being played, and really get a good understanding, a good feeling of the policies that each party that are putting forward and trying to get your vote. But more importantly, at the same time, it is still being dominated by that one issue. That word starts with the big B.
And that is?
Brexit.
And that's a whole different issue completely. We will possibly elaborate on that to a degree.
Definitely we will.
But I think that would require a completely
and showing his own right.
time slot. Yeah, definitely. In respect of the general elections, it's everybody's democratic right to vote. A lot of people do not vote, and I think that sort of takes away from what it is and what it entails to have that right. What do you want to say about that?
Absolutely. I think there was a big campaign by some of the established parties to let people know, especially the young people and people from an ethnic minority, that the deadline for registering to vote was yesterday. So if you haven't done so, then unfortunately your vote or your democratic right will not be counted in this election. It was widely published that this election has come around quite suddenly and quite quickly, but you still had time to register your vote. And we know that young people, especially students, when they move away, they may be studying in a different city compared to where they live, and unless they go back to the city where they are registered, then they won't be able to cast their vote. And the students are able to register at two addresses. So you may be able to then put your vote in the city where you're actually studying, which is different to where you reside. And again, I would urge people from an ethnic minority, which have historically been low in numbers compared to the wider audience. And when I say low numbers, for students as much as or young people, as much as 30% aren't registered to vote. And there may be many reasons for that, because the way they do politics is completely different to the established way. And also young people may feel disenfranchised by the current way and some of the shenanigans that take place in the Houses of Parliament.
Do you feel that possibly the younger generation do not value that right to vote to a degree?
No. I think the way they are passionate about politics is just displayed and manifest in a different way compared to someone maybe in their 40s or 50s, or the established way of doing politics. So theirs is more online. They may be more concerned about issues that affect them. So when you're 18, 19, you're affected by the employment prospects, you're affected by student loans, you're affected by the housing conditions and short-term tenancy, and also about the environment. You have been following the extinct rebellion demonstrations that are happening across the country and across the globe. These are by and large movements that are sort of trusted and orchestrated by young people, and now that Greta Thunberg is a household name. She is a 16-year-old Swedish young person who has travelled all the way to the United Nations in September by boat, so there was no carbon emissions, or very little, in order to let all the leaders know that you are putting this globe under great jeopardy with your environmental policies.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into the crux of what we came here to do today, which is the general election. So let's break it down. So we've got the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, and the Lib Dems, the big three.
Big three, yeah.
The big three. So what would you say about the big three?
Well, you know, according to some sources, with some of the debates, it was a big two. We had the Prime Minister in waiting. He's no longer the Prime Minister now because the Parliament has been dissolved. Boris Johnson, head to head versus the shadow and the leader of the opposition, which is Jeremy Corbyn, and both the SNP and the Lib Dems wanted to have a judicial review of the decision by ITV and the BBC to have those two, and their argument was in one way right, because the TV stations were saying realistically it is going to be a Prime Minister from those two parties. So the audience, the listeners, want to see what their policies and see how they do between the two of them.
Strike out the Lib Dems and stuff.
I think in terms of actually being in terms of actually being a Prime Minister, yes, but there's no reason why they can't prop up a minority government. You know, at the moment there's maybe back door dealings between the SNP and the Labour Party, you know, with the SNP now guaranteeing themselves possibly a second referendum on Scottish independence, and at the same time we know there's already been an agreement between Nigel Farage and his Brexit party with Boris Johnson and the Tory party in terms of where they're going to put their candidate, and they're not going to go for the safe Tory seats, and for me that is something that at the same time Trump, who actually said that a week before on a radio station to Nigel Farage that he would love and really wouldn't want nothing more than Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage making a pact.
Yeah, so there's already dealings going.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You know, we you know, not everyone gets to you know, see some of the backroom dealings that are going on, but be in no doubt that these things do happen.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep it very informal and very objective in respect of obviously the sort of policies we've got from, let's stick with Labour and the Conservatives, because obviously those are the two front runners in this.
Absolutely.
So if we go with the Conservative Party first, in respect of their policies, just broadly, what is it that they're putting on the table?
Well, since September, since Boris Johnson really came into the fore and became the Prime Minister and the leader of the Tory party, he seems to have forgotten the 10 years that people have really struggled and had to put up with real hardships under the under the title of austerity. All of a sudden, it's as though he's found a money tree, and as the his previous Prime Minister said that there is no magic money tree, but as soon as Boris Johnson come in, he has now vowed that he is going to install 22,000 extra police officers, which is a fantastic, and as people, as residents, we welcome any sort of investment that will better and make our communities safer.
I'm quite confused because from what I know of the previous, his predecessor, I'm sure they reduced the police force by a similar number.
By exactly the same amount. This is which is all about, playing abracadabra, playing magic. 10 years later, all they are reducing is bringing those numbers back to level, back on par as to what it was 10 years ago. But again, we welcome any kind of investment, but that was something that really caught the eye of the public. And at the same time, a couple of days ago when they launched their manifesto, they promised 50,000 more nurses.
Okay, so there's
50,000 more nurses. But if you break it down, there's actually 31,000 new nurses.
Okay.
31,000 new nurses, but what they said was 50,000 more nurses. The other 19,000, they are going to make the working conditions of those nurses better, so they are retained and are going to be in their jobs. So again, it is sometimes you have to look beneath the headlines and really get an understanding of what they are saying. So it's 50,000, but it's 31,000 new nurses.
There's a quite controversial issue in respect to the Tories. There's a lot of information, a lot of media coverage in respect to obviously the NHS going private by the Tory party.
Absolutely.
How likely do you think it is that the NHS will go private? And if it does, do you think it will have a similar effect to the medical and the medical profession in, say, the USA, for instance, which is private at the moment?
Where we don't want to go down, because they will not lay a hand on you or offer you any kind of treatment unless they know you have a private medical insurance. Talking about the negotiations, right from the word go, President Trump has said when we are going to enter negotiations with the UK post the Brexit deal, then everything will be on the table. And as a President Trump, the largest economy in the country, where we need him more than he needs us, why would he certainly, because that is the jewel in the crown. We spend over 120 billion per year on our NHS, and if he can get his claws onto any part of our NHS, whether it is getting better access to their medicines, or whether it's their companies coming in and getting their sort of commissioning and some of their clause onto NHS, why wouldn't they? And you can understand it from his point of view, but Boris Johnson and the public must have told Boris Johnson that the NHS is not for sale at any price.
So that's maybe not a
no, absolutely. And yesterday, in all the news, it was given headline coverage that Jeremy Corbyn had a large dossier of statements and reports of the negotiations that were taking place between the UK and the US. And certain parts were redacted, but certainly the negotiations about the NHS was taking place.
So they're already in negotiations.
Well, according to that dossier and Jeremy Corbyn, which has been flatly denied by Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson obviously was saying that it was a clever way of Jeremy Corbyn deflecting the pressure that he's under with the chief rabbi of the UK coming out and asking the public to think carefully where they cast their vote, especially to the Jewish community.
There's going to be a lot of how would you put it, information put out negative information
of course,
about both parties and both individuals. So that's to be expected. So it's not new news. It's old
this
news.
is the most dirtiest election that I have come across, and all rules are literally out the door, and everyone's got their gloves off, and
So
really
like
it's a bare fist fight.
Yeah.
There's no last week the Twitter handle of the CCHQ of the Tory party had changed to call it the fact check after the question time last Thursday. So for a normal person that may not follow politics, they would think that this is the official fact check handle Twitter page, and it's actually masquerading as the Tory official Tory handle. So this is what I'm saying about all normal rules are out the window.
So it's like a no holds barred kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Everything can end.
So if you love the down and dirty kind of politics, then this election is right up your street.
Any other sort of policies the Tories have got into place that that need to be highlighted? Some of the other key ones that
the key one also, I think he is very keen on ensuring is, and I think what you have to understand is Boris Johnson has one main policy. Whenever he has done these debates, whenever he's asked a question, he will always revert back to type. And what I mean by that is that he will say, look, on the 31st of January, I am the only leader, we are the only party that will guarantee you Brexit. So in terms of policies, in terms of manifesto, it is quite light compared to the radical Labour manifesto, and also the manifestos by the other parties, because they are fully going full steam ahead on the fact that they're the only party that are guaranteeing Brexit on the 31st of January.
Okay, so that's their trump card in essence.
That is their only card in some ways, and they think that is a election winner, and that's what the general public want, because they are sick and tired of the whole rigmarole that's been taking place for the last 3.5-4 years, and that the public has had enough, and that the only party that can deliver is the Tory party.
Okay, so those are the three main policies.
Absolutely.
You mentioned there. So it's the police force, 22,000.
Yes.
50,000 in brackets, 39,000.
31,000.
Yes. Apologies, 31,000 new nurses.
Yeah.
And then your final, what would you say, the cherry on the pie?
The whole Brexit, that we are going to get you
pro-Brexit, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to guarantee you Brexit.
Yeah, and so let's move on to the Labour Party now. There, as you said earlier, it's a more radical.
Absolutely,
type of
and it needed to be, and simply because I think because they are in opposition, they've been out of government for over a decade, and they had to convince the public out there that this is a manifesto. It had to be wide-ranging, that there is something there for everyone. So they've now said in terms of the NHS that they're going to invest a lot.
Let's break it down.
Yeah,
for
by
the
all
viewers.
means.
So we'll list them as points first, and then we'll elaborate with each one.
Yes.
So it's easier for people to digest it. So
in terms of what you want me to explain first?
Just list what points they've obviously in respect of their manifesto. So if you can keep it concise to what points they're on, then we can elaborate on
Sure. So one of the things that they are very keen in, they have a multi-billion pound investment on housing, ensuring that there are sufficient social affordable houses for people. They are going to also open up a lot of those brown industrial sites for houses. Those houses that have been empty for a long time, they will get them to be refurbished and reused. So that's one. The other thing they also are saying is they are going to pour another $20 billion pounds into the NHS, and this is new money that they are promising and really giving us a 21st century NHS. And what they have said is that when we do negotiate with the US, if we leave, then NHS is not for sale. That's something something that Jeremy Corbyn and his
so they're
party...
keeping it private then?
They
NHS is staying private and there's a 20 billion pound
absolutely. And the other thing that was a real winner, what they said was they are really targeting the youth. They said that they will abolish tuition fees. So if you're a parent who is paying money for their children to go to university and sustaining them, or you're a student saddled with thousands of pounds of student fees, then you will have applauded Jeremy Corbyn's policy of eradicating tuition fees. And we went further one more if I can, and what he also said was that he is also going to be championing two more things, I think, and one is that he wants to reduce the age of voting to 16. Mm-hmm. And the argument is that if they can join the army, if they can marry at the age of 16, why can't they vote, which makes sense. And secondly, they also said that we are going to nationalise part of BT in order for us to offer free broadband, quality broadband, fast broadband to everyone, and that will be again music to young people's ears.
Okay, just to clarify in respect of the abolishing of the tuition fees, would that affect people that are paying their tuition fees now, or say?
No, but that is when they come into government. So if those people that, for example, hypothetically speaking now, you're a student in year 2, mm-hmm. So you got one more year to go. By the time the Labour Party come in, it'll be next September that they would have the budget to remove tuition fees. So you potentially, I can see year 3's fees being waived, but not the year 2.
Okay, it's just for current students and not past students.
No. So no, that's unfortunately not.
Okay, it's still a good enough policy, to be fair.
I think it is.
Yeah. So in respect of the social housing, that's quite a valid point. As you know, there's a large proportion of the economy who are living, a large proportion of the population, who are living in social housing, and a lot of it not up to standard. I know there was a mention of tighter controls in respect of possible conditions and possible gas safety checks and electric checks landlords will have to commit to. I think I saw that on the news last week. Jeremy Corbyn was saying they were saying that it would cause more issues for obviously the landlords, people who are utilising properties, rental properties, and obviously using that as a source of income. There'd be more stringent controls on landlords to keep the property habitable and keep it up to a certain standard. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. I think all landlords need to be ethical. They need to have the welfare and the safety of their tenants at the forefront of their minds. And Labour Party went forward in terms of ensuring that there is a equitable rate of rent, and at the same time the tenants aren't unfairly kicked out of their premises. So it's going to be made a lot more difficult for tenants to be kicked out unjustifiably, and also once they are, then there's not enough housing stock in order for them to go, and that's why there is that multi-billion pound investment. So which is fair enough.
So there's going to be more stringent controls placed on landlords and obviously living conditions as well. In relation to the social housing though, how quick would we see development in that? Could that take 10 years, 20 years? Your opinion, what do you think?
I think this is a lot of these multi-billion pound policies are normally too big for one term. Like now today there was a policy of if I remember right, something along the lines of 11,000 trees being planted over the course of a parliament, so something like 2 billion. These are huge figures, and when you have such a radical plan, it's very hard to achieve these in one term. So the Labour Party is planning for the next decade to be in parliament, and that's the forecast that they put out.
Okay. Let's move on to...
I think before you move on, I think it's only right that we also touch on two topics on the Labour Party issue. I think first of all is, I think the Labour Party seems to have not quite got their message across on how they are going to abide by the referendum that took place in 2016. Their policy is that they are going to negotiate a brand new deal with the EU. That's going to be on one side, and
so they're still opting for the out option. There's no reversion on that.
Well, what the Labour Party policy is that it is up to the public to decide their fate.
So they'll do another referendum, basically.
Absolutely. So what they're going to do is, and this is where I think Jeremy Corbyn has really got himself into a muddle, is that the new negotiated deal with the EU is going to be on one side.
Yeah.
The offer of Remain is going to be on the other side, and the people of the UK will decide which one they go for.
Okay.
And the question was asked, you as the leader of the country and also the Labour Party, which one are you going to be campaigning for, advocating? And that's where there was no really clear decision, and I don't think Jeremy said that he's going to be backing either or, and I think the country wants a bit of direction from the whoever the Prime Minister is as to what the way is to get out of Europe or stay in.
I think that position would become more clearer if he actually gets we hope so, because that is what the feedback is on the streets with regards to the policy. I think it's too early for him to sort of make a decision yet.
No, he has said that he doesn't want to decide. That is for the public to decide, that he's going to remain on the fence.
He's going to remain on the fence, but obviously there's going to be one view that he himself feels that we should take, whether it's obviously another referendum or whether it's...
So if that's the case, and it's why would he not at this stage, when he's got a chance to win the election, and this is his, should we say, his weak point, why not at this stage make that position clear?
Yeah, because firstly, if he gets into power, then if he's putting the options on the table, then it's not a valid point to put the opinion forward first. Do you not think if he's not going to get into power, then his referendum deal and the deal that the EU offer is just something written on paper? So unless he gets into power, then obviously he can advocate, or he's going to lean to one side. He won't stay on the bench completely.
No, he said, I'm not going to.
Is he not?
No.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So that's where the trouble is for the people, that there's no clear strategy.
Yeah, but do you not think within the Labour Party people are going to lean to one side?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's 3 of the shadow cabinets have said that we will be fighting for Remain.
Yeah.
So I think the cabinet will be split. So I think that's where the clear leadership is. But I think it's worth sharing that with the audience.
So he's going to stay on the fence.
Absolutely.
The party, if they decide to push for a new referendum, then they can.
Yeah. So each individual within that cabinet will be fighting in whatever they feel right, and it is up for the public to decide which deal they like, Remain or the Labour's negotiated deal.
I think that's a very, very valid point that Ali's mentioned here in relation to Brexit. I wasn't aware of this policy.
So that is clear.
Been aware of it.
And the other thing I would also say is it's a very delicate, very sensitive issue, and it is something that both of the leading parties, the Tories and the Labour Party, have been blighted by, is of racism in different ways. So the Tory parties for a long time have denied that there was any kind of Islamophobia within their party. They've denied that there should be an internal investigation, and also have refused to adopt the Islamophobia statement that's been recognized by most agencies. And then at the same time, the Labour Party, for the last now 2 or 3 years, they have now been consistently been tarnished by anti-Semitism, and yesterday the chief rabbi really called out and brought it out in the open once again that the Labour Party, the current Labour Party, is no longer a safe home for the Jewish people. And again, even though both leaders have said that they are doing their best, and we abhor all forms of racism, including Islamophobia, including anti-Semitism, but I think the public remain unconvinced.
That's a separate issue to what we'll be discussing today, but it's a valid point again. Thank you for touching upon it. It's just highlighting the issues that the parties have got, which is what we're here for. So in relation to the referendum, just to be clear, so if Boris Johnson gets in, we're definitely going to leave.
Well, he said that on the 31st of October. And how many deadlines have we had? So for once again, Boris Johnson has said that we will definitely leave on the 31st of January.
Okay.
And I think that's why this election was called, because he wants a big enough majority in order, and what he said was all of the candidates that are standing for the Tory party have all said that they will vote for this deal next time he goes to Parliament. So if, for example, he has 400 MPs, all 400 Tory MPs will be voting for this deal. There will be no rebels. So that's why this election was called, because of that lock that we found ourselves in Parliament.
Okay, and to clarify, Jeremy Corbyn's position is that if he gets into power, it's either to give people a chance for a new referendum or for them to choose the deal that's been offered.
So there's going to be a new referendum based on the offer to remain, to stay within the EU, or the deal that he negotiates with the EU, which is a brand new deal separate from Boris Johnson's, and that may involve staying in the customs union, for the public to decide, do you want my deal with the EU, or do you want the offer to remain?
Okay, for the viewers, let's put it in layman's terms. So Jeremy Corbyn is offering a deal, so it's leave the EU with the deal that they've offered,
yes, or
stay in the EU and not accept the deal that they've offered.
That's right.
So the difference is from the previous referendum that there's a deal in place now.
Absolutely. So the people will now know what that deal looks like. So when we leave, we know what it looks like. Because at the moment, when we had the referendum in 2016, we don't know what leave meant. What it could mean different to you, it could mean different to me.
So we were flying blind in essence then.
Well,
we've got a clearer picture.
So in one way, it is a mature policy, but I think it just needs people to understand exactly what it is and where Jeremy Corbyn stands behind.
Okay, and the other policy you mentioned, we'll touch on it briefly, is the age of voting, dropping it down to 16. Do you think that's a good move, a good position?
Personally speaking, someone who absolutely believes in democracy and believes that every vote counts and everyone should be entitled to vote and should know the value of their vote, and a lot of people have sacrificed their lives in order for us to have this privilege. I absolutely wish that this was done many a year ago, but at the same time I can understand why it hasn't happened, because if you look at it, the Labour Party, their traditional vote is relatively young, and the Tory Party is relatively older. And the so, for example, the average Tory member is 55. Most of their voters are, should we say, in their 50s and 60s. So, if you know, as a party, that if we lower the threshold to 16 and most of them will be voting for your opposition, why would you? Even though it's the right thing to do, but I think you can only withstand the pressure to a certain extent before that pressure becomes insurmountable and you have to do it. So it will happen, whether it's in the next parliament or not, but it's just a matter of time. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next final point that we've got for the Labour Party, is the nationalisation of broadband, which I think is
revolutionary.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's revolutionary, and it's one of those where it's become one of the basic fundamentals. I know one person put it: it's a human, it's a human right for us to have broadband. And so I think it was a bit of a blue sky thinking. It was a fantastic policy. It certainly caught the headlines, and a lot of young people have certainly backed that.
Okay. Can we briefly touch on the other parties, the Lib Dems, the SNP?
Absolutely.
What do you know about their policies?
So for me, the Lib Dems are the main party that have said that they will reverse the result of the referendum, and what they are going to be doing is, and they are going and championing, is that they will remain in Brexit.
So their position's similar to that of the Tory party then?
No, they will remain in Europe. Sorry, my fault. They will remain in Europe.
Okay.
So they will go against the referendum, and they will go with the 48% who lost the referendum, and they said, look, because it is against the national interest, because it's going to cause unnecessary harm, and because this uncertainty is causing real problems for our businesses, for our entrepreneurs, for the Joe public, that we're putting the national interest first and reversing that particular result.
Okay.
And in one way it was strange, and it's whereby when the TV debates took place a couple of weeks ago, the leader of the Lib Dems, Joe Swinson, was saying, this is undemocratic. Why am I not part of that process? Mm-hmm. So she used the word undemocratic. Mm-hmm. How contradictory is that, when she is now going to go and reverse the result of the referendum? Is that not anti-democratic?
Yeah, I can see your point. It's
do you understand? Do you understand
to a degree, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Can we possibly touch on the Brexit party briefly?
The Brexit party, yes, they are led by Nigel Farage, and they, as I alluded to earlier, they have already made a pact with the Tories not to contest in those seats where the electorate is already back in a leave position, and they are going to be targeting majority of the Labour Party leavers and remainers. So that's where their policy is. They are also saying that we want to leave at any cost, even if that means no deal, we want to leave. So that is their main issue. But at the same time, what they have said is that they want to abolish the House of Lords. Okay. There should not be this privileged secondary chamber within our democracy, and they will want to get rid of that. And also, you don't know, because Scotland by and large voted to remain, she may at some point want to then have a second referendum or break away from the UK and stick to the EU. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of...
Do you think there are some possible, backhand deals going on with the SNP and maybe one of the big two?
Well, certainly big one. I don't think there's any chance of the Tory party and the SNP being bedfellows, but certainly there's no reason why behind the scenes, they won't publicly admit it, that the SNP and also the Labour Party may be talking. But I think maybe a bit too soon, but maybe nearer the time, depending on the result, then those sort of tough negotiations will take place, as did in those days when Nick Clegg and also David Cameron did so a while back. So that will happen. And also at the same time, the SNP are also saying that we will not renew Trident, because Trident is more or less based around their waters up in Scotland.
Just for clarification to our viewers, what is Trident?
Trident is our name for our nuclear defence.
Okay. And finally, the Green Party. The
Green Party, yes. So, over the last few months, the Green debate has been at the forefront, mm-hmm. and unfortunately, because of our voting system, the Green Party traditionally don't do well when it comes to first past the post.
Yeah.
So they do get 1 or 2 million votes. But that doesn't translate itself into members of parliament.
Policies have they got? Because I know theirs is more pushing towards the environment.
Yeah, it's all about environment. It's all about environment being for us to reduce our emissions by 2025 and 20. So they want to have electric cars. They want to get rid of diesel cars by 2025. So real, I would say,
revolutionary.
But at the same time, there's going to be a cost towards that. Yeah. So we will have to pay for it. But at the same time, they are saying we are doing doing untold damage to our environment, and hence why we have the extreme weather from, you see some of the bushfires in Australia, you've seen some of the flooding in some parts of the world and also here, and that is all because of the temperature rising over the last few years.
Okay, that's brilliant. We've covered all the parties and some of their policies. I'd just like to say to everybody to utilise their vote on the 12th of December. Absolutely. It's a democratic right. It's been fought. A lot of people have sacrificed their lives for this, so don't take it for granted. Go to your local voting station and vote for who you feel comfortable with voting for, but do your research prior. Because obviously once you've placed your vote, that's it, it's placed.
That's right.
Mr. Ali, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, I would like to say a couple of things. If you've enjoyed the show, then please let us know, because with the host's permission, what we are planning to do is on the 12th of December, we will do a live show in terms of how the current trends are looking, who's ahead, who's not ahead, what the picture is on the day. Please join us for that. Otherwise, everything is to play for. Look at their policies, look below and beneath the headlines. But one thing is for sure, as Anis said, definitely cast your vote. It's far too important juncture in our future for us not to be casting our vote.
So guys, like Mr. Ali has advocated, along with myself, is utilise your vote. Make sure you read into each of the parties' policies. Don't go on what we've just said, because obviously we've just given a slight overview. So do your own research. Vote for who you feel happy to vote for. Don't just read what you see on the media. Read between the lines, and good luck to everybody on the 12th of December. And as Mr. Ali said, we will definitely do a live broadcast and have a look at the polls and discuss it further on the 12th of December. So good luck to everybody out there, and all the best, and thank you for watching. This is EMC TV, this is The Real Story. I'm Anis Asif, this is Muhammad Ali. Thank you for watching.